Hello again, everyone. Today I have essentially some random watercolors to swatch for you all today. I have a Daniel Smith Prussian Blue, I have a Blick Artist Watercolor Cobalt Turquoise, and then I have a couple of handmade watercolors from Jazper Stardust on Etsy. I will put a link to this Etsy shop and where I got the Daniel Smith and the Blick, where I got it from Blick, obviously. Someone had mentioned that Blick was made by Daler Rowney, I think. And so I kind of wanted to try their artist watercolors because I'd never tried them before and see whether it is the same quality as that brand. So that's what I have for you today. I have a couple of little swatch cards here just for the tube watercolors. I generally don't keep swatches in my swatch books where I keep all these little swatches together. I generally don't keep any for handmade watercolors. And part of that is because often handmade watercolors are just a one-off and you can't get them again. So I don't want to have it as a reference if I'm not going to be able to get those watercolors ever again. So that's basically why I'm not doing that. But these, you know, they're generally available. So let me go ahead and open these so you can see which colors they are. And of course now the tape is going to be difficult on me to open it up. And Jazper Stardust, definitely from comments I've received on prior videos where I have swatched these, it seems like some people have sort of had a mixed experience with these watercolors. I just got two colors here. And that's true for myself as well. Some of them are really dusty in texture. Some of them are really, really great. But others seem to have some issues. So I would say check them out. You know, if you like them, feel free to get them. If you don't, or, you know, if you want to do a little more digging, I'm not necessarily advocating for this particular brand. I just wanted to complete a collection that I had of these. I have built up a little palette. Do I have that palette handy? Let's see. I might. Let me take a look. Okay, I've taken a look around and I don't see that palette. Oh no, here it is. I had actually put it right on my desk because I thought I would want to reference this. I'm not going to be swatching this whole palette, but I have swatched the majority of these colors on the channel before. So here I have a little palette full of different handmade watercolors. I have a whole bunch of different blues and reds and only a few yellows and greens. And I was really missing some brighter, vibrant colors, so I was going to add those to this collection here. This is Fuchsia, and then this is, I think it's Orlin, which is a yellow. So I wanted to add a couple of brighter colors in the essentially primaries to add to these. So I won't be swatching these. I'll see if I can find the last swatching video I did for these so you can kind of see the swatching there, but you can also see the swatches just here in my little swatch sheet. So, and maybe I will leave these out so I can add the new ones here to this. Because I'm also going to be swatching these, all of these in addition to the samples. I'm going to be swatching them on some watercolor paper. Okay, put that out of the way. This is a Pentalic watercolor field book, which I use for pretty much most of my watercolor swatches. That's right. Most of my watercolor swatches that I make on the channel. But this one had just one, this page just had one little sample here of a Schmincke liquid charcoal. And I think I'm going to do these on this page because it's just a few of these. And with the Prussian Blue, I've already put the pigment information on here. It's PB27 and it's granulating, which, so I got all this information from Daniel Smith's website about this particular color. I was kind of surprised to see that they thought their Prussian Blue was granulating. I'll see if that actually pans out in these swatches, and that it was semi-staining. So excellent light fast and transparent. And I wasn't able to find any information about granulation or staining or transparency on Blick's website about this, so I might just kind of base this on the swatches today. I have a feeling that Cobalt Turquoise is probably granulating. It has been granulating in other brands, so we will see. I'll keep those little swatch cards off to the side there. And I often have trouble with color leaping out of the containers, so I have to be really careful here. Okay, that worked out okay. And I'm actually going to work from this little swatch here to put on the swatch sheets, and then whatever's left I will use to create a swatch here on the page. I can tell this one's probably going to go over a little bit. There's a little bit more color on that one than the Prussian blue. In fact, so much more so, I think I'm going to add a little bit more of the Prussian blue. I'm a little afraid to open it up again, but okay, let's just add a little bit more. A little bit. I said a little bit. It's way more than I wanted to add. I'll probably leave some of the pigment on the page here. And then I'm going to unwrap these. And this is another problem I've kind of had with their watercolors. Sometimes the paper will get a little bit stuck. But if I add a little bit of water to that, it should come off fairly easily. And this one was no problem at all. And then I have a pot of water off to the side here. And I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit so you can see these a little closer. Okay. So I'm gonna swatch these two first because I am essentially only going, well, I'll swatch them here and then I'll also swatch them on my little swatch sheet there so you can see that. So this is the yellow. It's very nice and creamy, actually. And sometimes it helps, I just added some more water there, but sometimes it helps if you pre-wet these as well. And this particular maker has actually been working on, put that on here too, on really saturated colors. So, and that's what this is. It's a very saturated color. So I'm just going to put a little swatch here because I made this swatch sheet before I decided to get these extra colors. But as you can see, that's a color that is not represented here in this existing palette. And I'm putting the yellow there and the red over here. Let's see. Oh wow, that's very saturated. And the unfortunate thing with having this light above here is, although I get a lot more light, you also get quite a bit of a glare here. So I'm just going to create a little square here. Yeah, that's gorgeous. I really like that. I'll bring these back out later so you can see how they're drying. And then I'm going to put these aside because I'm not going to be using them anymore. I'm just going to put them in that palette that I showed you. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and put them in here. So let's see, where did I have that? In this. So malachite, aqua, sap green, Sahara. Okay, so right here is where this yellow is going to go. And then the violet will go here. It's kind of a tight fit for all of these to fit in this thing, but I think it should fit pretty perfectly. There we go. So then that is my completed palette here of these Jazper Stardust watercolors. Put that off to the side. And then let's move on to, I'm also going to put those little papers off. I'm going to go to this, let's move this down here, to this Cobalt Turquoise from Blick. And this stamp that I use to, this is essentially just a permanent stamp on watercolor paper. It's a stamp from Waffle Flower, which I will put a link to down below. It's really been useful. I have put all of my permanent swatches of paint on these little swatch pages that I've made with the stamp and watercolor paper, and it's worked really, really well. Okay, so this is the mass tone, which is essentially as concentrated as you can get the color. Essentially the color right out of the tube, which is a little easier if you're doing it really right out of the tube like we are today. And then I probably want to add a little bit of water here because I don't want to, I want this to be heavy on this side. And then I'm going to, I would say that that is not transparent. I would say that that is opaque. And then I'm gonna sort of half rinse off my brush, feather that out a little bit, and then completely rinse my brush and go all the way out to the edge. I'm just pulling the color to the edge to see what we can get there. I'm gonna add a little bit of color here. I'm gonna say that this is opaque, because it is definitely covering this line, this black line here, pretty well. I think I may have diluted it a little bit, but it definitely, I would call it opaque. So I'm gonna get my little Sharpie pen, which is what I make the notes with on here. So because this is opaque, I am just completely covering in this transparent square. And I would say that that is granulating, just from what I'm seeing here. It did say that it was excellent light fastness. Staining, I don't know. I will maybe do a little test after I've swatched this out a little bit more. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swatch what's left here on the page. There wasn't actually a whole lot, so that works well. And then let's move over to this Prussian blue. Definitely granulating there, you could see it already. Okay, so let's go on to the Prussian blue. Again, let's get the mass tone, which is essentially as dark as we can get it. It's a little bit, I'm holding my paintbrush sort of in the middle as opposed to up close where I normally would, just because of the angle here, so it's a little bit harder for me to control the color. Actually, if I put it at an angle, it's probably a little better. So very interesting that they say that this is a granulating color, because I don't think it generally is classified as granulating for other brands. That's probably good on the mass tone. Again, you're not seeing it all that well because of the glare. Prussian blue is definitely a very deep blue. Okay, gonna get it all the way across and then rinse out halfway. Semi-staining is probably correct on this because it tends to be, you can still lift the color, but it tends to be a little bit more difficult to lift. Now, because of where all of this paint is, I'm actually going to bring it down here because I'm not going to have enough room up there to bring all that pigment down here. It's so funny, I had this exact same problem when I was swatching Prussian blue from Renaissance recently on the channel, which you may or may not have seen. But I ended up getting too much Prussian blue on there, so I ended up having like a really, really big swatch of it, which I'm gonna have yet again. Prussian blue just likes to jump out of the container, clearly. Okay, so we've got a little swatch up here, and we've got a swatch down here. All right. And those actually look really nice together, these colors. So let's see. Here's that Cobalt Turquoise. And now what I'm going to do actually to see if I can lift, because this is pretty much dry now, this little swatch here. So I'm going to, I wet my brush so there's no pigment on it. And then I dabbed it off just a little bit, and I'm going to see if I can lift this color. And I'm going to do that again. And lifting, you just, you know, you're essentially trying to scrub the color off. So I would say that this is probably low staining. I wouldn't call it not staining, just because I have rubbed at it there and you can still see the outline of where I swatched. So I'm going to call it low staining. And it's actually a good exercise to do things like this on your own, to figure out what you think the qualities of the watercolor are on your own. Let's see, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see all of these swatches in context here. This is pretty much dry, definitely granulating. You're definitely seeing that. I am not seeing any granulation forming in the Prussian blue. I mean, this is almost dry here, and I'm just really, I don't know, I guess I can see a little bit of granulation. I mean, this isn't the best quality watercolor paper, so if you were working on cotton paper, maybe you would be seeing more of that, but this isn't cotton paper either, and you're definitely seeing the granulation on that. So I'm not quite sure why they think it's granulating. Maybe it's low granulation. But I am seeing a little bit of something, but this is not what I would normally associate with granulation. And then this one, really, really pretty. I mean, perhaps this is not opaque, but semi-opaque, but I'm going to leave it as opaque because I think that in practical use, it's essentially opaque. Okay. And then again, this is now dry, this is now dry, this is the fuchsia. It looks like I'm getting a little bit of blooming from the water here on the fuchsia. And this is the Oralin color. You can see that the pigment is a little bit grainy, but I like that effect in a yellow. I don't see that very often in a yellow. All right. Well, that's all I had for you today. Feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you have any questions about any of this or just want to chat, feel free to comment below and I will answer when I can. I hope to see you next time, but in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.